Imagine paying top dollar for a first-class seat, walking with pride into the VIP cabin, only to be humiliated, judged by your skin, and shoved out like you didn't belong. Now imagine if the person they kicked out was the very one who could make or break their entire careers. What happened next had the entire flight crew trembling, and the internet could hardly believe it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more jaw-dropping, true-life-inspired stories that flip the script on injustice and spark conversations across the globe. The boardroom to boarding. Gate Danielle Lawson adjusted her Cartier watch as her sleek black heels clicked down the marble floor of JFK Airport's VIP terminal. She was used to attention, but not for her fashion or flawless skin. It was usually the shocked expressions when executives realized that Lawson Enterprises' CEO was a black woman under 40. She had just left a groundbreaking merger meeting in Manhattan, set to become the first black female CEO to partner with one of the oldest British tech conglomerates. Her schedule was airtight. Every minute mattered. As she stepped into the Maison VIP lounge, heads turned, not because they recognized her, but because they couldn't process a black woman in custom Dior walking with the poise of royalty. Her assistant Leo, a wiry white guy in his 20s, trailed her nervously, holding her tablet. "Ma'am, Flight 701 to London is pre-boarding. I confirmed your seat, 1A, first class." She nodded, gave him a polite smile, and walked toward the gate. Then it happened. As Danielle handed her boarding pass to the attendant, the woman's eyes narrowed. "Excuse me, ma'am, there seems to be a discrepancy. Can you step aside?" Danielle raised an eyebrow. "Discrepancy? I paid $12,000 for that seat personally. Confirmed 5 days ago." The woman clicked her tongue. "Well, we've had a last-minute upgrade. That seat is now reassigned." The gate agent gestured for a tall white man in a navy suit carrying golf clubs to proceed into 1A instead. "He's a priority partner, platinum elite, you understand." But Danielle didn't, and she wasn't about to understand. "You're removing me from my seat?" "For him?" she asked calmly. "I'm not just a ma'am, I'm Danielle Lawson, the CEO of Lawson Enterprises, and that seat was guaranteed." The attendant scoffed. "Ma'am, either step aside, or you'll delay the flight." Cameras started rolling. Passengers started whispering. And Danielle, instead of arguing, pulled out her phone and sent one quiet email. Subject: Emergency protocol initiated. 5 minutes later, the plane's doors were sealed, but not before the British Airways flight ascended, with Danielle seated awkwardly in business class next to a confused retiree who kept asking if she was in entertainment. Meanwhile, in first class, the white passenger now lounging in seat 1A was blissfully unaware that he had just taken the seat from a tech tycoon about to shake the global business world. But 35,000 feet above the Atlantic, emails began flying, faster than the jet itself. At Heathrow HQ, Sir Malcolm Prescott, chairman of the board for the airline and ironically the same man Danielle was scheduled to meet, received the subject line: "Urgent, discrimination and contract violation." In the email was footage. Danielle, calm and collected, being dismissed like an intruder from her rightful seat. Twitter was already catching wind. Danielle Lawson was trending. Influencers, celebrities, and journalists flooded the thread. Some recognized her instantly. Others were just enraged that another black woman had been publicly shamed, corporate giant or not. Meanwhile, back on the plane, Danielle said nothing. She simply observed. The crew, who now felt smug for having restored order, began serving champagne to the VIP cabin, excluding Danielle's section. A flight attendant smirked. "Sorry, business doesn't get dom." Danielle simply nodded. She knew what was coming. What the crew didn't know was that her assistant Leo had immediately contacted international media, legal counsel, and Sir Malcolm's chief of staff. They were now scrambling. not just because of the optics, but because Danielle was also in negotiations to invest $200 million into an airline technology upgrade contract for this very company, and now that investment was in jeopardy. 5 minutes later, the flight crew received an encrypted message from the cockpit. Prepare for company directive update, urgent personnel reassignment pending. One steward, Richard, whispered to the chief purser, "I think we messed up." By the time the plane landed at Heathrow, the airport was flooded with reporters, 2 government liaisons, and Sir Malcolm himself, wearing a look of regret stitched deeper than the lines on his tailored suit. Danielle disembarked quietly, her presence majestic and unapologetic. The first words Sir Malcolm uttered weren't hello, but "I am so sorry, Ms. Lawson." She nodded, unimpressed. "I assume the crew has been briefed?" "They have," he replied. What followed was unprecedented. Right there at the arrival gate, a full staff termination order was executed. The gate attendant from JFK was suspended. The entire in-flight crew relieved of duty. HR escorted each one down a private corridor for immediate interviews. Meanwhile, Danielle's face was now being broadcast live on BBC, CNN, and Sky News. She didn't ask for the spotlight, but now she had it. She walked straight to the press podium, delivering just one sentence. "If dignity must be earned through status and skin, then we've all already failed." The crowd erupted. The airline's stocks plummeted. But Danielle wasn't done. 2 hours later, she hosted a press conference at the Savoy Hotel, announcing a $50 million investment, not in the airline that embarrassed her, but in a rival startup focused on equity in aviation services. "Today isn't about revenge," she told the crowd. "It's about redefining power, access, and respect." The airline board panicked. Executives were reshuffled. Sir Malcolm tendered his resignation 2 weeks later, not because of Danielle, but because the world had changed in a single seat. At every table months later, Danielle Lawson was no longer just the CEO of Lawson Enterprises. She was a household name. Harvard invited her to keynote. Time named her Person of the Year. Her merger closed at triple its expected valuation, but more importantly, she launched the Skybridge Initiative, a nonprofit that trained and placed minority youth into aviation and aerospace leadership. The ripple effect of that humiliating moment transformed into a tidal wave of change. Airlines around the world revised their discrimination policies. Seat reallocation protocols became stricter. And the video? It reached 500 million views in under 48 hours. In an exclusive interview with Oprah, Danielle was asked, "What did you feel in that moment being removed from first class?" She paused and replied, "I felt history tugging at my sleeve, asking me not to sit down but to stand up." The world did too. Meanwhile, the fired flight crew attempted a lawsuit, claiming unfair dismissal. But with video evidence, global backlash, and even former passengers speaking out about prior microaggressions, their case collapsed. One of the attendants, Richard, now works as a flight safety instructor. He claims the experience woke him up. As for Danielle, her seat is no longer questioned, because she doesn't wait for a seat at the table. She builds the whole table herself, and if you've ever felt dismissed, erased, or unseen, her story is your reminder. Power doesn't need to shout. It simply stands tall when others try to shrink it.